Buenas, bienvenidos a este vídeo de unplandivino.net, por así decir, y aquí estamos con Claudia para seguir con el siguiente de la ira. Del enfado es tu guía o el enojo es tu guía, como lo queréis decir. ¿Qué tal ahí en el Chaco con el calor y la mañana?
Gracias, Iván. La verdad es que bien, estoy cómoda, es cómoda. Tuve mi desayuno de ira un poco ya, a sentir, ahora que sabemos que es la guía, sirve mucho para iluminar, la verdad, totalmente es así.
Bueno,
Que bueno, vamos
está
compartiendo.
señalando nuestros miedos, ¿no?
Sí, es. Una vez que uno comienza a hacerlo tan naturalmente, digamos, los descubre y con el del deseo que vimos anterior a ayer le mostraba a mi hijo que tengo en el cuaderno ya 2 columnas en las hojas, a 2 columnas la hoja, y pongo creaciones y miedos y me he creado esta situación y qué miedos hay ahí debajo. Por ahora mis deseos están en desarmonía porque, claro, vimos que en realidad no queremos estar en armonía. Entonces, claro, como son impuros, generalmente los estoy a posteriori, como después de la creación. Todavía no logro anteponerme y empezar, pero sí me siento muy acompañada en este sentido, por tanto por la asistencia directa o indirecta, digamos, con el propósito de empezar a conocer y descubrir lo que hay.
Tenemos que sobre todo lo importante era hablar con Dios de que realmente nuestros deseos están puestos ahí en el miedo y en proteger el miedo y cada vez más concreto, ¿no? Hablar porque nos está escuchando y también los guías, pero también Dios a través del alma nos puede dar esa sensación de verdad, de honestidad, cuando nosotros somos honestos, contando nuestras propias realidades, que realmente no queremos sanar las heridas y así, ¿no? Ese espacio hay que irse mentalizando, parece, porque es de lo que más vemos que insiste Jesús cuando siempre les da esa especie de corte a los que intervienen en los talleres con los tantos casos que hemos visto, ¿no? De la persona, pero es que me siento confusión. Y le dice Jesús, no la estás sintiendo. Pues si la sientes, sentirías que hay que miedo ahí debajo y a su vez sentirías la pena de debajo, etcétera, etcétera.
Sí, y querer huir, creer que la confusión es un error, que sentirme confundido está mal y que debo pasar a sentirme seguro, así como quien se cambia de camisa. Sí. Y claro, entonces ya, no, siente seguridad, párate frente al espejo y di, soy segura, ya sé, yo sé lo que quiero, sé a dónde voy. Que es una forma de huir, ¿no? De ese regalo que representa la confusión. Y entrar ahí, tan simple como eso, realmente te lleva, porque es laberíntico, como lo muestra él en el dibujo, el del miedo, es un poco laberíntico, pero sí te lleva, vas ahí tranquilamente porque el alma sabe y esa confianza se va desplegando.
Sí, estamos fuera del volver a ser como niños, que ahí veíamos en aquel vídeo donde lo explica esta cosa de que los niños en realidad solo tienen dos reacciones ante las emociones, o bien se rebelan o bien simplemente sienten. Nosotros tenemos, sin embargo, todo el barullo montado, que es lo que él representa con las capas emocionales en este taller y en otros. Sí, fíjate, pues. Bueno, aquí vamos a ver el PDF, está ahí también, por si queremos ver algún dibujito. Y bueno, pues vamos a darle.
Last year, you said to write down your fears, and I wrote down my fears, and some of those fears I've been dealing with and healing, and my law of attraction has been changing. Lately, I've been wanting to heal the fear of the love of God, and today I've had memories of, I was brought up a Catholic, and in church, big statue on the cross, Jesus on the cross, plaster, drips of blood and everything, and feel.
Bueno, lo está describiendo así, no es que haya ningún error, es que está describiendo la imagen y se está emocionando.
Feeling faint, and I'm feeling faint now and dizzy, and the nun said that every time I was a naughty little girl, I nailed Jesus to the cross and I made him feel more pain. And I used to feel faint in Mass and in school, and I actually fainted. And when I was naughty, the devil was going to get me and all that sort of stuff. So I know that this fear of the love of God is that stuff. And a blockage between me and the love of God.
Yeah.
And I want to heal it.
Yeah. It's a terrible thing that you get told that being told that my death was made more torturous by your actions.
Yeah, so it's my fault.
Is a major form of control that churches have used over children in particular. It's a terrible thing to say to somebody, isn't it?
Little children of 5, 6, 7. Right.
Yeah. Well, let's look at how to deal with it. If you could think of a scale where I'd call this your fear scale, if you like. Down the bottom here, I'll call it the opposite to fear is truth. So the problem with fears is they all enter us emotionally. So remember that fear and truth are not just intellectual concepts. They are actually, together they are emotions. So that means that every single fear that entered me, I'm not going to be able to deal with it by just saying the fear. I'm actually going to have to deal with it by feeling the fear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So your fear in this case was that my life, my death actually, was made more torturous by you sinning.
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
integration that they gave you. That is not the truth.
Yes.
You know here that's not
Yes.
true. So here you know the truth is that actually I only died because of, well, as I said yesterday, because of money. Basically, that's the only reason why I died, right? And because of the conflict between truth and error. That's the only reason why I died. But here you know that.
Yeah.
But here you don't feel that.
That's right.
So the only way to get to feel that here is to actually feel the fears that you have leading you. So what were you told?
I caused you pain.
So how do you spell it?
Karisma.
Yes. Who's that? Caused Jesus pain. And it was torture.
Torture.
By sinning. Now, by the way, you can replace me with anybody here. So a lot of times, one of the emotions that we all have is we're afraid of hurting other people. You know what I mean? Like, most of us have that. So if your mother, when you were young, told you, you're hurting me when you feel that. You hurt me when you did that. It's the same emotion. Does that make sense? It's the same kind of emotion, but directed at your mother, not God. So this emotion exists in the majority of us because most of the times our parents have taught us things like, you're hurting me when you do this. Or you're causing me more pain. Or don't you realise how bad you're making my life when you say that? And so forth. These kind of emotions are often projected at us. You will need to feel that you did do that. Because that's what you feel inside of you. To release it. Does that make sense? So let yourself feel that. So rather than fighting the belief that it occurred, go into the childhood feeling that that's what you did. Go into the childhood feeling that that's what you did.
Aquí dice, entra en el sentimiento de infancia, en el sentimiento infantil de que eso es lo que hiciste. Esto no es entra en la infancia, pero se entiende también. Pero más preciso sería así. ¿Sí? Entra en el sentimiento infantil de que eso lo hiciste.
You follow me? Yeah. Now, you know here it's not true, but that's immaterial. You will know here it's not true when you release from yourself emotionally that you did that. Does that make sense? And so you're going to have a good cry about the fact that you believe you caused me pain. Now, if I just let you do that, and those of you who have this same feeling with your mother or your father, let yourself believe it to be true in this instance, and let yourself feel it. Does that make sense? Because the truth is in your heart, you believe it to be true. So you let yourself believe it to be true and feel it. When you feel it fully and pray to God about that, what will happen is you'll come out the other end of that feeling, releasing it, and you'll no longer believe it. Does that make sense? Microphone. Thanks, guys, mate.
This is kind of sort of that place where I remember when I was a young child, I had fingers, and I sort of ran angrily.
Is the mic on or no? That's it.
And I'd throw my arms around and sort of get quite angry, and I'd either storm out the door, I'd stub my toe. Or,
so when you were a young child, you used to have tantrums?
Yeah, when I was a young child, I'd have tantrums, and I'd sort of get into a stage where I'd sort of scream and yell. And sort of shake as well, and when I try to leave or something, I'd stub my toe or hit my elbow, and my mother would say to me, "Haha, see, the devil got you back." From those actions, and that's just something I'm feeling from that.
Yeah, exactly. These are all messages that our parents give us, and in fact, religions also do the same thing. They give us to control us, and unfortunately, they enter us emotionally. So this is one reason why you would have some fear about the devil. So even though you might not even believe in a devil here in your mind, the emotion as a child would be that the devil got you back every time you were bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you have this feeling in you of constantly being on the lookout for the devil sort of thing, and getting you back if you were to do a bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah, which means sort of suppressing emotion, because when I sort of get it out,
So now you suppress the emotions because you think if you let them out, the devil's going to get you.
yeah. I didn't have to be a living person to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, no living person's going to punish you, but somebody in the spirit world will, which for many children is actually scarier. So many parents go through this problem of control with their children. So they come up and they dream up many forms of how to control their children, including like, I can see you even when I'm not here. You know, and if they have a spirit with them, that is actually true. So if a parent has a spirit telling them what the child's done, right, then the parent could say to the child, I can see you even when I'm not here. You make sure you do the right thing, because if you do the right thing, I'll know. And I've had people that I've met who've had parents like this who have come back and said, you did this and you did that and you did this, didn't you? And give them a good belting for all the things they did when the parent wasn't even there. But the parent knows they did those things because of the spirit telling them, and that just creates this huge terror in this child. Like they feel controlled even when the parent's not there. And so there's adult children that are now working through their emotions who feel like their parents, who are now 7 or 8, are still controlling them because of this emotion in them. So these are really damaging emotions to work through. Well, just what we'll do now is, it's 3:05, so what we'll do now is have a break.
Quiero hacer el corte, pero en el vídeo este no hay corte, directamente pasan a la siguiente sesión. Por la tarde sería, después de comer. Y ahí vamos.
All right, how's everyone doing? Good. Feeling a bit better than yesterday? Has everyone noticed that the energy is a bit better than yesterday? Still a bit of resistance today, but energy a bit better than yesterday, which is really, really good. The main issues yesterday were this deep resistance to thinking that anybody's angry. And then this deep resistance to actually allowing it to be discussed or triggered. And so yesterday there was this really oppressive load, and There were quite a few spirits here yesterday. When I say quite a few, I think it was close to 1 million spirits here yesterday. And they were, many of them were brought here by celestial spirits who, because of their angry state, and these spirits, the celestial spirits, thought that the spirits would benefit from the information. And through the night, I had the feeling that the majority of them did benefit from the information. When I went home last night, I felt quite disappointed about yesterday because the feeling that I didn't do a good job yesterday. And didn't confront perhaps your anger more than I did. But after my sleep last night, I realised that a lot of the spirits who were here were definitely assisted. So I was pretty happy about that. I woke up this morning. Yeah, so, and with regard to this anger discussion, it is a difficult thing, and it's a bit scary thing that most people find, because we're so focused on trying to keep everything at an equilibrium, everything nice and safe and secure. And when we start talking about anger, there's so many competing emotions in even the discussion. One of the competing emotions is, well, what if I get into anger and I kill somebody? A lot of people feel that there's that much rage inside of themselves that if they let themselves start experiencing it, they're going to do some major damage to people. Others feel like, well, no, I don't want to be perceived as being angry. What? Me angry? No, I'm this loving, nice, calm, spiritual person that I've been all my life, sort of thing. And they don't want to conceive that perhaps there's some anger inside of themselves that's really affecting their life. And then others understand that, yes, the anger is a gateway into what's underneath, and they do not want to go underneath. And so many of us have this feeling, I do not want to go underneath. What's AJ doing to me? He's trying to get me underneath, and I don't want to go underneath. And this is why a lot of the times, many of us feel really buoyant after I have a discussion about love or natural love or something that's a little more external to myself, right? So a lot of us come away from that kind of discussion feeling really enthused and buoyant and quite encouraged and so forth, and walk away sort of on cloud nine type of feeling. And some of you have felt that after a group, right, for different groups. And then when we have a discussion about fear, or we have a discussion about anger, everybody goes into this closed down, shut down state. And when we walk away at night, we go away with a headache instead of feeling good. And the reason why is because we're wanting to keep down the truth about inside of ourselves. So my suggestion is allow yourself even a bit further, just to open up and allow the fact that there is some anger in there, and allow the fact that what that's about to start coming into your consciousness. Because it's that work that's going to bring you closer to God and also closer to other people in your life. So, for example, if you have anger specifically directed towards the opposite sex, then obviously that's going to keep you at a distance between yourself and the opposite sex. Now, if you have a heterosexual type of relationship, then obviously it's keeping distance between you and your partner. If you have injuries towards the opposite sex. So, allow yourself to work through those injuries and allow yourself to get closer. Because if we don't face these things, we'll never experience the bliss that's possible to experience. So allow yourself to dig deep into those emotions. I was wondering, Mary, whether you want to just join me and talk about some of your emotions about the opposite sex. She's just in the middle of a processing. You don't have to. What I would like to do from now on, so after Mary is finished, we'll invite others to come up and talk about some of their feelings about things too. So. Right. Well, remember we were mentioning a few things about anger that you felt. Was it last night or this morning?
I think I started saying some stuff yesterday about recognising that I was so angry at men in my life, and some of that was triggered when I met AJ as well, and I realised that that's related to some first century memories that I still find hard to talk about publicly, so that's a good trigger for me today. So when I first met AJ, the first emotion that I connected to was anger. And I think he was relating yesterday, about 4 days into our trip together, I hit this huge grief, rage emotion that seemed to come out of nowhere. And when I wrote about it in my journal, it was a very strange experience because all of these feelings were coming up in me that I didn't understand. But the predominant theme was that he had left me and abandoned me, and I was very, very angry about that. And I felt that I couldn't trust him again because that would be what would happen again. And that's been an emotion that has been I've been working through for about a year now. It's a big one. And as I get further down into it, something that I've been working through, saying that in the last couple of months, is the feeling that AJ can't understand the pain that I've gone through. And he still doesn't understand the pain that I've gone through. And I sort of had this realisation yesterday that that was actually almost a cap. That's a huge emotion in me, so it's hard to feel that it's a cap, but it actually is a cap for, it's an avoidance of feeling just the deep grief and pain that I did feel at that time, that I still feel connected to. And I think the reason we sort of thought that would be good to talk about today is that I do see that in other women there's this real anger that men don't understand us. And it may not come out as a rage. It's more of an attitude that I feel is quite an angry attitude that a lot of women have. But it is actually an avoidance of the deeper grief that we have about how we feel men have treated us.
So it's like sometimes these emotions, like Mary just pointed out, the emotion of men, I'm not understood by you. So let's say you're in a partner, you're in a relationship with your partner and you're a woman and you feel like the man doesn't understand you. And so then there's this temptation to project a lot of anger at him every time he doesn't understand you. So rather than doing that, see that as just a cap over an emotion of I'm not understood by men. And underneath that is the core emotion that men just like, oh, that I've got to feel, and that is nobody can understand me. Is the core emotion underneath that. And no one can understand me because I'm a woman.
I feel hurt, yeah, because of men's actions, that kind of.
Yeah. So allow yourself to dig deeper into it rather than just projecting that surface layer towards your partner.
Because if you think about it, or us women, a lot of us have that belief. We don't even think that's anger, that's a belief. Men just don't understand us women. But I'm telling you that's anger. So if you have that belief, you're angry at men. So it's actually not true. These men understand.
This really, like, you know, the men are from Mars, women from Venus type thinking is like, while it's gained a lot of popularity, because of the misunderstanding between the sexes. The truth is, the way God designed us is that we're one soul together. So how can we, in the end, ever misunderstand the other? So once we actually broke down, so once I break down all the barriers inside of me towards feeling misunderstood and also misunderstanding, and once Mary breaks down the same barriers, then of course we'll completely understand each other. In fact, so completely that Mary's emotion as she's feeling it will pass through me. And my emotion as I'm feeling it will pass through Mary. We won't even have to open our mouth to say what the emotion is. The other person will be automatically feeling it.
If you think about it even energetically, this belief that men don't understand me is a very much pushing away sort of a thing. Whereas if I'm in my grief of feeling misunderstood, it's much more allowing. And you create a different energy between the two of you.
Yeah. So if I'm focused on allowing all of my emotion to be present within me and feeling all of my emotions, and Mary is focusing on the same thing with herself, then obviously now emotion can actually go between us and it actually creates more understanding. Like, she will then understand me because she can feel my emotion. I'll be able to understand her because I can feel her emotion. Does that make sense? All misunderstanding between the sexes is all because we've got blockages to letting ourselves feel their emotions, or we've got blockages to feeling our own emotion, or we've got blockages to allowing them to feel our emotion. Right? And all of the misunderstandings that occur because these blockages are in the way for Mary to feel my stuff and me to feel Mary's stuff. When I feel Mary's stuff and my own, and Mary feels her own stuff and my stuff, we have complete understanding in the relationship. Complete knowing, without opening your mouth, what emotion we're going through at every particular instance. And that's what it will mean in the end, to be closely unioned as soul halves into a soul, into a complete soul.
Another thing, like under my anger, I realised I had a lot of fear. I think you mentioned it earlier about feeling that I'll be vulnerable and then I'll lose this man, and that will hurt worse than if I don't open my heart. And I do think a lot of women have that feeling as well. And I have realised that it's actually cutting off your nose to spot your face or something, because I'm keeping him at a distance all of the time because I'm very afraid of losing the potential love and connection. But in the end, he's at a distance anyway, and we kind of make each other miserable from the distance. Yeah, so I'm sort of preventing a potential experience of pure joy and happiness for fear of losing it.
So can you see a lot of times we're worried about future events, and the fear of a future event creates the anger in the present? Like, we're afraid in the future that I'll lose it, and if I lose it in the future, then what's the point of opening out now? I might as well give up now rather than losing that in the future. So imagine what it feels like for you to be in a beautiful, loving relationship and then your partner die. So there are going to be some emotions about that, isn't there? If we're not yet in an abundant condition, there'll be some emotions there, right? And so the key for me is to, again, just allow all of these feelings pass through me. Mary does the same thing. Rather than focusing on what may happen in the future. The irony is once I release these emotions anyway, what will happen in the future will be a lot better than what will happen if I hold on to these emotions right now.
Because while I'm still in grief, I can't actually love properly anyway.
And while you're in anger, you can't love properly either. And while you're in fear, you can't love properly either. Stand on the back with the mic.
I've been having a problem with just trying to get into the fear of having a relationship with a man again. I know there's probably a lot of anger towards men. Still, the other day I kept on saying, I just want someone to love me, I just want someone to love me. And then all of a sudden I realised, no, I don't, because I've still got this anger and this fear.
And can I just stop you for a moment? Think about the reciprocal.
Aquí más se refiere, creo, más a un sentido de la literalidad, de la afirmación recíproca, más que...
You didn't say, I want to love someone.
Well, that's the other thing that came to me this morning. I had a huge release even before I came today. And I was saying, I just want somebody to love me. And then I turned it around and said, I want someone I can give my love to and not be rejected. So that was huge for me. And then I went in and realised that God was already there doing that for me. So that was wonderful. What I wanted to ask was, when you say about passing through you, the emotion passing through you, do you mean not taking it personally? Like sort of trying not to take it personally?
Every emotion is personal.
Yeah, well, that's what I was sort of, so you mean once you're sort of at one with God, it will pass through you?
No, I'm saying even for a child, the emotion passes through them. So, for example, you look at a child, when a child starts crying, if you just let it cry, it cries for as long as it needs to cry and then stops. And after that, it gets up and walks around as if nothing had happened. You notice that with children? Like they have their big cry or their big tantrum or whatever it is they're having at that moment. And then they get up straight afterwards almost as if nothing has actually just happened. So when an emotion fully passes through you, there's nothing left stored inside of you of that particular emotion at that moment. So if I'm letting all emotion pass through me, I'm experiencing all emotion as it's passing through me. When it's finished passing through me, it's not something that I've stored inside of me.
Okay, can I just one other thing? When you were talking about women not understanding men, I've actually turned that around, and it seems to be that I don't understand men. You know, I'm not worried about me they're not understanding me. I don't understand their thinking at the moment. And the other thing is, over probably 3 or 4 years, I keep having this recurring dream, being very anxious about people understanding me. You know, why don't you understand me? Why don't you let me just say what I need to say? And it's like I end up screaming because I don't feel like I'm being understood. So is that all part of the relationship thing and the anger thing?
Yeah, your statement that I don't understand men, like it's very blanket though. There's obviously specific men in your life and there's specific male relationships in the past. So if you can make it more personal, because when we just say, who understands men, and you kind of, gets us away from what's there is a man in my life, and well, I'd like him in my life, and I think he's my soulmate, but I'm getting mixed messages. I have so much grief over not being.
No sé si había dicho que estás recibiendo como mensajes mezclados, por así decir.
With this man, every time I think about it, I cry. So I think there's got to be something there, but I don't understand where he's coming from, and I'm trying to.
Instead of trying to understand where he's coming from, just focus on what is being triggered in you right now. Because it is your law of attraction, even if he's your soulmate. So just try and go into, okay, mixed messages, how to...
Sí, eso le faltaba antes a la traducción, ese tema de mensajes confusos, digamos, mezclados ahí, variopintos.
That make it, you just go, and you're really good at that. Go into all of that and just don't try and kind of put him in a box yet or understand exactly what's happening with him.
And this is a main problem that many have, not only with their husbands, wives or partners, but also with parents. A lot of times we don't allow ourselves to feel our emotion because we're so busy trying to understand the other person's emotion and why they did what they did. Forget about why they're doing what they're doing. Forget about why they did what they did. Forget about what you think they're going to do in the future. And just focus on what am I feeling about what's happening with me right now in this relationship. What am I feeling?
And that's a classic tool I used to use to get myself out of my emotions. To try and understand where the other person's coming from, have compassion. That, oh, well, that's just where they're at. And I just skipped over a whole lot of emotion of how I felt about the treatment of me.
I think I'm just feeling like you. If I don't do it quick enough, he's going to be gone. You know? Just on
Because your soulmate.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah, I know. But that's kind of
understand that feeling.
Just one more thing, because I am a single woman and I don't have a man in my life, and I love the way the two of you have bounced things off each other and you've got each other to sort of help along. As a single person, male or female, I share house with Nada. Can we still, it's kind of like being in a relationship because we're sharing a house. If things trigger us, we should be talking to each other, but will that help a intimate relationship in the long run as well?
Any emotional work that you do will help an intimate relationship in the long run, definitely.
And you're right, you know, the fact that you're living with another person is your law of attraction. So obviously there's something for you to learn in that interaction. And if both of you are in the state where you're both working through emotions, that can be a very powerful interaction, both working through the information. In the end though, you still need to take personal responsibility for your own responses and talk to, you know, in the end, the most powerful development that you'll ever do is the development you do in your relationship with God. Because as you heal things, see, I keep saying this, Deborah, but God's not damaged. So if I'm not feeling love from God right now, it's not because God's not trying to give me. It's because I've got a blockage to receiving it. Does that make sense? And if I heal that blockage to receiving it, I'll instantly at that moment feel the love coming from God. Now, God's not damaged in receiving love either. So when I have a feeling of love towards God, God instantly feels that. And I will notice that, so instead of having this feeling, I'm trying to love someone, and they're not letting themselves feel love, you won't feel that with God. So if you're not feeling that God feels you love God,
aquí esto está mal. Si no estás sintiendo que Dios siente que tú le amas a Dios, entonces hay otro problema dentro de ti.
So if you're not feeling that God feels you love God,
God feels that you love God. Dios siente que tú amas a Dios. Si no estás sintiendo que Dios sienta que tú le amas, entonces hay otro problema.
then there's another problem inside of yourself, you know what I mean? And because God's not damaged in giving and receiving love, then if I'm not receiving from God or not giving to God, it's all my own stuff. And that's the beauty of that relationship. You focus on that relationship first in developing love, what will happen is every other relationship will be greatly assisted by that. But the law of attraction certainly has brought you into a living situation with another woman. So if that's the case, then there's things that as a woman you need to heal. That each of you probably have opposites or some kind of sympathetic attraction for. that if you work your way through your issues or your annoyances or the different anger you might feel with each other or different things that happen between each other, that will certainly go towards healing yourself. And healing yourself is one of the biggest things that needs to occur in any relationship with the opposite sex. So,
okay, one more very quick thing. It's a really, really good thing.
yeah.
I was banging and thrashing in the garage this morning, and I was yelling, and I was crying, and I was making a lot of noise. And we live in suburbia. And Nada told me after I finished that within probably a minute and a half of me making that noise, the lady across the road rang her and she said, Nada, are you okay? Are you all right? And we felt that was a very positive thing. And for Nada particularly, she felt as though that somebody really, sort of cared about her. It made us both feel safe that we can do this without fearing that police hurt.
So that neighbour obviously did care about you. Because unlike what happened last week, the neighbour tried to call you first. I'm sure if they didn't get you, they might have called the police then, mate. But at least they demonstrated love to you, and that's fantastic when you feel that coming at you from somebody you may not have even known very well. And that's a lovely healing type of emotion that you can also receive, certainly. Brian, could I ask Brian? Give the other girls a bit of a chance and not Brian. Has my mic on? I don't think so. Oh, okay. I'm having trouble with it today, so we'll just see how we go. Working out?
Yeah, sounds like it. I feel like I have to stop processing since last week, the angry activist. But I'm wondering if you can help me with what's going on at the moment. I seem to have my grandfather's sexual rage and feelings of powerlessness associated with that conflicting with my mother's anger at him. My mother was perpetrated against by him, and I seem to have this war going on inside me that I can't resolve. And can you give me any clues about how I might help myself deal with that?
Sure. Firstly, your grandfather's sexual rage, you're feeling a lot of it at the moment because your grandfather, as you know, is around you at times. And so you're actually feeling it from him.
There's another thing, I was actually born on his birthday.
Yeah. So there are some significant things going on between you and your grandfather. Your grandfather does have a lot of anger towards the feminine, and he sees homosexuality to a degree as sort of a feminine thing rather than a masculine thing. And so he's directing a lot of his sexual rage at you. Yeah, and so that's something that you're having to deal with. And then I feel, Brian, you sided on your mother's emotions, like you have a deep sort of commiseration, I suppose, feeling towards women. And the fact that women have been abused, because as a male and as a homosexual, often that's what's been aimed at you. So you can deeply relate to a woman's sexual abuse. And to a degree, this is what's attracting grandfather's feelings. So the key for you is to go into your emotional sadness and grief about how you've been treated as a homosexual man, and allow yourself to fully connect to those emotions. And what the other feelings you're feeling are actually your grandfather's feelings towards you. All right, so you can talk to your grandfather about what he's done. You know, you obviously have spirit connection, so you can talk to him about what he's done. You can talk to him about he needs to go away and feel his own sexual rage towards women, and work through that emotionally rather than projecting it at you. Because that's what he's doing at the moment. Does that make sense? And Jen? The button goes right up.
This morning, and Graham and I had some things happen for us. I wrote it down. Is it alright if I just read it?
No. I want instead for you to come up here, and I want to talk to you about another issue.
I'm really scared.
I know. And you can leave the mic there because I've got one here for you. I'm at life. You're worried that I do that. Sit down. Do you remember yesterday when you were talking to me up here?
Yes.
Do you remember what you were saying to me?
Lots of it, yes.
Yeah. Do you remember how when you started you said to me, "You're Jesus," and then off you went? Remember that?
Yes.
What do you feel about that now?
But you can't help me. That in reality, you're just a man doing a job, and I've got to do it for me.
Yes. So can you see how you were expressing your rage really in that moment towards me? What you were doing in that moment was you were saying that I would somehow be able to fix this in you. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And there was that expectation in you that I somehow fix something in you. So that was an expression, even though you were crying, that was an expression of anger. You were ragefully crying in that moment. You were actually wanting me to fix something rather than you actually feel the painful emotion you were experiencing. Now, the next thing that happened after that was that you did exactly the same thing with one of your sons. Remember, one of the things you said with your son was, you know, you asked him how he was doing, he turned around and he got angry with you. And remember, you were crying about that.
Yeah.
So actually, that was just masking over some rage towards men as well. What you were masking over there was the fact that you had created this rage within him, and now you're upset that he's doing it to you, and you want him to stop. That was the emotion.
But I gave him permission
No,
to be
you didn't.
angry. To be angry.
No, you didn't. I know verbally you did, but from an emotional perspective, you're saying to him, please don't be angry with me, son. Please don't be angry with me, son. This hurts me. That's the emotion that was coming from you towards him in that instant. That's why he reacted to it. So what was happening there was, again, a denial. You were expecting your son not to be rageful with you because you didn't want to feel the pain of your own emotion. So you remember then you said a similar thing about God soon after that in the conversation. You felt angry with God that God's created this system where you did things. You remember that? Where you did things to other people that harmed them and you did them unconsciously, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
Now what you were doing in that instance is you were blaming God for the pain you were feeling. And in every one of those instances, you are not going to fully allow yourself to feel the pain itself. Can you see what I'm saying? Now, I didn't raise this with you yesterday because you weren't in the space where I could say these things. You were more in the space today where I could say them. So what was actually happening in that, almost in that entire interaction, there was a projection of emotion in every single case of anger towards me, God, your son, and instead of you allowing yourself to completely feel the pain you were in. And
So how do I get to that?
well, the issue is that you're still not fully willing to feel that pain without feeling like someone else is to blame for it. Do you follow me? So at the moment, there's still this feeling in you that your parents are to blame for it, God's to blame for it, AJ's to blame for it, Jesus is to blame for it, right? Your son's to blame for it. But there's not this full feeling in you that actually no one's to blame for it, I've just got to feel it. Do you see the difference? I've just got to feel it without projecting the blame, without projecting the need, the desire for someone else to take it away from me.
if you're telling me that in that moment of being so broken down, I still wasn't feeling the depth of my pain, then I don't understand.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Because at that moment, what you were doing was you were projecting anger at God, at me, at your son, at your father. But you were not yet at that point fully experiencing the grief of the emotion itself, the pain of the emotion itself. So what true repentance is feeling the pain of the emotion itself. The pain of the emotion that you were experiencing yesterday was that you have harmed other people. That was the feeling you had. You've harmed your sons.
Yes.
That was the feeling you had. But instead of just feeling that feeling, you were blaming God for it. You were blaming me for it, wanting me to take it away from you. You were even blaming your son. You were blaming your father, but you weren't allowing yourself just to feel that you, not them, you had created harm in others. Now, when you allow yourself to fully feel that you created the harm in others, without feeling blame for any single other person, then you will be repentant. And that's when God's love can reach in you and take away the cause of emotion. Does that make sense to you? When you're prepared to feel the pain of everything you've caused, that's when God's love can enter in you and pull out the cause of emotion. Until that time, you'll be going through this cycle.
I'm not sure I can believe you.
I know, but that's something you'll have to work out between yourself.
This is the first time I've gotten to the reality, if you like, because it's real for me.
Yeah.
That I don't actually believe you.
Yeah, that's right. And this is why you reverse.
It's not that I don't want to.
I know that.
It's not that I don't want to repent. It's not that I don't want to own.
It is.
It isn't.
It is.
I know. I've heard others.
No, stop for a moment. Your actions yesterday prove that you don't want to own. Your actions were blaming God, blaming me, blaming your son, blaming your father, but not feeling the damage you have done to someone else. That was your actions yesterday, which is proof, in fact, that you don't want to feel that particular emotion. So there's other emotions you have wanted to feel. I'm not saying this is right across the board. I'm saying with this particular emotion, which is the emotion that you feel, it's a law of compensation emotion that you have damaged your own children. The truth is that you do not want to see the extent of the damage, nor do you want to feel it inside of you.
Okay, so what do I need to do?
Well, pray to God about the desire to feel it. Pray to God about this, because whenever you're whenever you're angry with God, or you're angry with me, or you're angry with your son, or you're angry with your father, that's when you're demonstrating a desire not to feel it. Because remember, anger is the thing that's suppressing the emotion. It keeps you away from the emotion. When you fully get into that painful feeling, and one of the statements you said to me yesterday was, if this is how much pain I'm going to have to feel, I don't want to feel it. Is one of the statements that you said. And I said, yes, Jen, this is how much pain you're going to have to feel. And you are going to have to feel it if you want to get closer to God.
Aquí en realidad el dolor se refiere a cuánto dolor. O sea, si este es el dolor, refiriéndose a cuánta cantidad.
That's the statement I said to you in return, but you didn't hear that very well yesterday. The key is to allow yourself to fully connect with the grief inside yourself. There's no blame. There's no blame.
Ahí se refiere a la pena, al... No ha dicho el pain.
Blame coming from me here. This is just saying to you.
O sea, no está acusándola, quiere decir aquí. No estoy acusando por mi parte de nada. Es solo que te conectes.
Fully connect to the grief inside of you, right, of what you've created.
I'm afraid, okay.
I know.
For one person that's really close to me, that I've let get close to me, calls me damaged,
Yeah. And
judges me.
but you damaged. Like aren't I damaged? Well, I've mentioned publicly all of my damage, so yes, I'm damaged.
That means to me that I'm not ever going to be damaged. You can't fix it. You can't ever be healed.
This is your emotion now, and this is a good emotion to connect to, because it's what you believe. It's not true. But the truth is I am damaged, but also the truth is I can heal. That's the point of us doing this. Okay. Because in the end we can all heal.
I'm so afraid of the judgment. I'm afraid of that.
Okay. So let yourself feel that fear and then work through that, what it means to you. But you can do this just like anyone else can. But when somebody says to you, you're damaged, they're true, they're right. You are damaged. And if someone says that to me, well, no, it's the truth. It's a judgment if the person looks down on me when they say it. But the truth is I'm damaged, you're damaged, and every single person here is damaged, you're damaged, and I'm not judging anyone, including myself. I'm just stating the truth. But if I say you're damaged and you're a bad person and I just can't, and I look down upon you and I have that feeling coming to you, now I'm judging you. Now, if you feel judged from me just saying that you're damaged, then you're just feeling your own judgment of yourself about you not being perfect. So feel it, because that's all it is. It's not real. It's just your judgment of yourself. So you need to feel that feeling. It's not the truth, though. The truth is that you, just the same as anyone else, can release all of this damage. And all of us here will, at some point in our future life, become perfect.
Okay, so
Even though we're damaged.
it's really scary for me. I feel fear, okay, right now.
Good.
I felt it when I walked down towards you.
Yeah.
How do I go from there to connect to the desire of what you're presenting to me? Okay?
The first thing to do is
What do I
release the
do
fear.
next?
Release the fear. So when you go back to seat in a second, have you got a notepad with you or something like that?
Yeah.
Get out that and start writing down what you're afraid of now. The truth is that you are afraid that I'm not saying who I am, who I say I am, that I'm not really who I say I am. The truth is that you feel that if you deal with your emotions, it might not work. That in the end, you might be dealing with the emotions and do all of the things I'm suggesting to you, and in the end, that it might not work. And the truth is that you feel that if you deal with these emotions, that you finish up losing a relationship that you're only just trying to get. Like the truth is that you have a lot of fears still about these things. Allow yourself to acknowledge them, write them down.
Specifically about my sons. I need to get to the next step. Okay?
So what are you afraid of with your sons? You're afraid you've done so much damage that they'll never recover.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can assure you that when you release the damage within yourself, they will begin to recover. That's the truth. Does that make sense? So that's what you need to do. But at the moment, the thing you need to do is just feel the full extent of the damage to your sons. And by the way, this applies to all parents. Allow yourself to feel the full extent of the damage to your children and pray to God, ask God to forgive you for that damage. And you will find that God can then, through love, just grab hold of all that causal emotion inside of you that may take 100 years for you to deal with any other way. And God will be able to just help remove that from you. Does that make sense? Allow yourself to do that. So what I'm saying, Jen, applies to all parents here and really all people who have had an interaction with another person that's damaged them. Allow yourself to feel the pain of the damage, but take that to God, and you'll find in that instance, it will be one of the closest moments you've had with God when you do that.
Please ask you. Jeffrey left and went home in the car with Nicholas, my other boy, and then had an argument. And Jeffrey exploded.
Yep.
They beat the dashboard and broke his wrist at the same time as I was up here.
Yep.
Am I to blame for that? Because I wasn't fully repentant.
There's a direct relationship between their interaction and what is happening with you emotionally. So I'm not saying you're to blame. Obviously, he is an adult man who can fully not bash the dashboard of the car if he chooses to not do it. But what I'm saying is there is a direct relationship between the emotions that you refuse to process within yourself and what happens to them. So allow yourself to see that. Their argument was caused by emotions in them that you partially created. When I say partially, there was an absence of a father or a father that created it as well, not just you.
That was my decision anyway.
No, that's fine. The key is for you to just see the damage you've done and allow yourself to fully experience it. When you do that and direct that to God, that's when repentance occurs, and that's also when divine love flows into your soul. Do you see what I'm saying? I'll talk more about this subject when we talk about prayer and other subjects in the future. But I wanted to address this with you because yesterday you were in this state where you were crying and feeling some of that emotion, but there was lots of anger being projected while you were doing it, and you didn't realise that. In your pain, you didn't realise how much you were projecting at everything else. Does that make sense? Thank you.
I just wanted to mention something about what Jen said about judgment. I haven't been through a lot of these and I've never met Jen, but goes with what you're saying about the spirit involvement of last night. And I was sitting further up the back, and I noticed when Jen was actually getting up, the whole audience was quite drawn to her. And the words that came to my mind was messenger straight away, as if there was also spirits sort of entering her to sort of come forward and do that. And the reason why I think it's related to anger, and it feels to me that she sort of doesn't really connect with it at the moment, is because one after another, it felt like it was alternate spirits, anger coming out and hitting you with it.
Yeah. That was exactly what was happening. Because Jen was denying the anger within herself about those emotions, what was happening was the spirits in those instances were just connecting and giving me a barrage, basically. I felt a lot more of it than what she was actually saying, obviously. So, but that was certainly happening. And many of you, when Jen gets up to speak, go into a state of contraction. For different reasons. And that's something for you to also look at in terms of emotionally look at that. Why do you go into a state of contraction when Jen speaks? Because you do need to have a good look at that, what's going on inside of yourself emotionally. Now, the reason why I've been involved with Jen in a lot of these discussions is she's so open emotionally to be involved. And I know she's triggering many of you while I'm doing it. And secondly, also, is that she does have quite a lot of spirit influence at times that she's not aware of. And I'm involving the spirits in the interaction in this group through that mechanism as well. Besides the fact that I love her and I think she's going to do wonderfully on the divine love path. And so if all of us can bear that in mind, is that in every one of these groups, the reason why the emotions ebb and flow is because there is often heavy spirit influence at different times, and at other times. And there's also often within ourselves certain reactions that are going on. And, you know, some of those reactions are positive, and some of those reactions can be quite like upset and negative and angry and frustrated. Why is AJ doing this? And all of those kind of emotions as well. And so allow yourself to feel that while this is happening. Allow yourself to note down your triggers, if you like, the emotions that are presented to you through this process.
Yeah, I sort of felt like she was more a gateway between the things that was both, and it's yeah, sort of open from both worlds. But I know I'm very painful if I heard.
Can you say this into a mic if you're still there?
So yeah, I was thinking that you can see it's obviously very painful for her to go through because it's happening through her, but at the same time, yeah, it's just unbelievable to witness.
Yeah, those of you who weren't here Friday night.
Esto lo decía también el chico, que creo que es Josh.
I mentioned to Jen one reason why that it's so difficult for her to determine the difference between her own emotion and spirits with her is that she's very, very open to hearing spirits. And the reason why I identified an emotion in her which is yet to work through, and that is this emotion that she needs to be heard. And many of these spirits who are in lower conditions also have the same emotion. All they want is someone to hear them. All they want is someone to actually listen to their story. And so that emotion connects with Jen's emotion, which is why the spirits find it so easy to connect through her and state their stories. But unfortunately, it also interferes to a degree with her processing of some of her own emotions. And one reason why I invited her up just now is because I wanted to identify to her, and to you as an audience too, the times when she was not actually dealing with the emotion, but actually was projecting anger rather than dealing with the emotion. So there'll be many times in your life where you're crying and you'll think you're dealing with grief, but in reality you'll be dealing with anger. Because you just feel like this, you know, you feel this blame while you're crying. So if you're crying and you're feeling blame towards others while you're doing it, like, why can't they help me? Why can't they, you know, this kind of thing. So I'm crying away, why can't she love me more? You know, that kind of crying. I am not in a causal emotion. What I'm in is an effect emotion of anger.
La emoción de efecto de ira, más que no es que la cause la ira.
That's actually preventing me from going deeper into the causal emotion. And I can cry for years and years and years on effect emotions like that. I personally have done that. I personally cried when I was 7 years about a relationship doing exactly that. Crying about the effect. Why can't she love me? Why can't she? Instead of just feeling the feeling and actually feeling grief about being unloved. The fact that in my case, it was this feeling that nobody can ever love me, that I am unlovable. I'm unlovable. And so oftentimes we're actually feeling the emotional layer that's above the real core. And this is why many people have this feeling that if I emotionally process it, I will be doing it the rest of my life. And the truth is that if you emotionally process at the affect level, you will be doing it the rest of your life. Right? So if I'm emotionally processing and while I'm feeling these emotions and crying, I'm actually blaming another person, right at that moment, I am actually, and that is not a causal emotion, and I can do that for the rest of my life. And my suggestion is don't do that. I did that for 7 years or so, and it's very, very painful. So don't do that. Allow yourself to step the level below that, which is no longer a state of blame, and no longer a state of trying to punish somebody, and no longer a state of trying to have somebody else fix you. When you're in the emotion itself, you won't feel those emotions. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Open the corner here, if we can.
Bueno, aunque no han terminado el punto 9, pero bueno, ya se sale un poco de lo de Jen más directo, te propongo un descanso y seguimos dentro de unos minutos. Bueno, está en lo de Jen, yo quería haber parado antes, pero como el Joss aunque se ha puesto muy rápido a hablar de cosas súper interesantes de los espíritus, hubiera estado bien quizá pararlo ahí, porque lo de Jen es muy fuerte y...
Claro, a mí me sirvió un montón también comprender que, como él dice, ser testigo es un privilegio, sí, muy interesante. Al mismo tiempo empecé con 2 hojas, por un lado, cuando él le dice empecé a anotar, recordé lo que sentí esta mañana y al mismo tiempo iba teniendo en cuenta lo que le iba diciendo, quería que no se me fueran. Esto de entrar a un estado de contracción, involucrar a los espíritus, a que estoy abierta a escucharlos, eso que uno, esa sesión de voluntad que uno concede, ese trueque que estás todo el tiempo sucediendo ahí.
Sí.
Que hasta qué punto son tus emociones, porque yo al principio anoté que me asombraba mucho cómo ella no reconocía la ira que sentía, que le dijo, le permitía a mi hijo enojarse, y Jesús le dice, no, fue lo que dijiste, pero no lo que sentías. Entonces anoté primero como una observación de que Jen no podía reconocerla, pero claro, después cuando empiezan a ahondar y a ver que hay mucho más, que es mucho más amplio eso.
Sí.
Comprendí. Sí.
Es súper paradigmático. Y el tema del arrepentimiento se ha visto muy claro ahí, el diálogo con Dios, pues si te parece, podemos empezar dentro de unos minutos con un repaso a lo que ha hecho Jen y seguimos.
Dale, buenísimo.
O algo así. Sí, leyendo un poco. Y bueno, pues nos despedimos del amado público y ya saben que cuando estén enfadados y estén diciendo que están permitiendo que se enfaden, a lo mejor no lo están permitiendo, ¿no? Que es lo que hacemos.
Sí, exactamente.
Pero
sí, la condescendencia es otra forma de daño también. La experimenté con mis hijos y el hijo de Jen claramente se molesta porque es una forma de degradar también. Es violencia, muy sutil, pero es violencia, sí, la condescendencia.
Y es lo que hacemos con nosotros mismos también, que creemos que nos estamos permitiendo las emociones y vivimos en una eterna frustración, en un eterno enfado, pero no nos las estamos permitiendo. Y es como si estuviéramos ahí arrogantes, narcisistas, condescendientes con nosotros mismos. Es una cosa muy rara, ¿no?
Sí, y cómo lo tengo con mis hijos, ¿no? Como la honestidad, en ese caso, porque ellos perciben lo que hay por debajo, o sea, siempre y cuando se llega a un nivel de honestidad en la expresión, digo, que no sea tanta fachada, entonces te revelan que hay dolor, sí, que hay incomodidad, sí, molestia. No lo aceptan, no lo toman así tan libremente.
Bueno, pues dejo de grabar. Gracias.
Gracias.
Despídete del amado público.
Gracias. Seguimos, súper interesante.
Mm.